Hey folks, and welcome back to another episode of Straight Talk Whiskey. I'm Nick, here with you as always, and this is episode number 55. So, today we decided to go to the Scotch side of our whiskey journey and give you a little bit from Johnnie Walker in Johnnie Walker Double Black. So, you've probably had, if you've had Scotch before, or may even have been your first drink of Scotch, the red label or black label. And so let's start off with a little bit of history. So Johnnie Walker, we're going back almost, well, a little bit over 200 years ago. So around 1819, John Walker's father had just died. He was roughly 14 years of age, and so he was working on a farm. The family, going forward from that, decided to sell the farm to set John and the family up with a grocer and sort of the busy market town. And John sort of had a knack for business. And what he also had a knack for was whiskey. So during that time, I believe it was illegal to sell blended whiskey. So what were lining the shelves at the time were the single malts. Now, John, being a whiskey connoisseur, would have these single malts and just be sort of dumbfounded and disgusted, really, at the lack of consistency in quality. So he took it upon himself to sort of take certain single malts that were out there and blend them together and make something that was consistent every time and was of quality. So we see from the very onset of Johnnie Walker that it's not sort of, and people love to bash it these days as, oh, it's a blended Scotch. Like I don't go near that. Like, and nobody really has any basis for that. They think that single malts are king, and yes, that is reflected in the price, but that's only because the market is buying into what people, conceive about single malts and blended malts. So that's basically where that comes from. But just know that the history is steeped sort of in this foundation of creating quality Scotch. And it just happens that they are so well versed in blending different malts that are out there, different Scotches, that they create a good product, a consistent product. And, they've been around for over 200 years now, and it is one of the top Scotches that people buy. The red label and black label, certainly, and then you have the people who go out and buy the blue label, which is, depending where you are, upwards of $200. So there's that, and they're owned by the spirit giant Diageo. Now, let's get into talking a little bit about the whiskey itself. So you probably had Johnnie Walker Black before, and you may like it, you may not like it. But what we have here is a 40% ABV, no real frills, no anywhere saying that there's no caramel added or there's no chill filtering. Looking at it, and looking at the color, there definitely is some, if you want caramel added, but, that's sort of what we have to deal with sometimes. And there's no age statement on it, yet the Johnnie Walker Black, it's pretty much assumed that the minimum age of the whiskey that is blended into that is 12 years. So, given the fact that this is really building upon the Johnnie Walker Black label, it's pretty safe to say that it's going to be 12-year-old whiskey in there. So let's go into it. Let's give it a look. The color is definitely a caramel sort of honey note that's in there. Can't really gauge too much as a pure spirit, because it is just sort of, or natural, cask strength spirit or something like that, where you would get the nice lighter color or something like that. You can just tell right off the bat. You don't even have to have had whiskey for long, but if you know about the caramel coloring, you can tell that it's obviously in here. So the one thing that they sort of made a point in the double black has to do with the taste and the nose of something that you'll be very familiar with, which is this note of peat. Now, that is coming from the peatier whiskies that are in this blend, a little bit more of the heavier Isla single malts. And so what comes across is it's not overly peaty. You don't have a strong sense of that, say, like a Lagavulin or Lafroig or something like that. You don't get a real strong sense of that. But what you do get is sort of associated with the onset of that, the peat note, which is like the sort of briny sea salt, sort of ocean spray, a little bit of lime, this little tanginess to it. Is something that you definitely get in there. But what you're also getting is sort of this nice balance of these lighter fruits, a little bit of sherry fruit note that's going in there, a little bit of sherry dessert wine, and definitely some, it's almost like a tangerine sort of fruit is in there, but underlying that is this nice charred oak wood vanilla that sort of resonates on the nose there, which is really nice. Again, they've been blending for over 200 years. I think they know what they're doing. Let's go in for a taste, though. So, whereas you don't get the real strong sense of peat in the nose, you definitely get in the taste. You can taste those real, probably, maybe there is some 16-year-old Lagavulin in there, I'm not sure. But it's definitely getting that sense of a really nice peat smoke in that, which is just lovely. And also with the sort of lemony quality to it, which is, it's not overpowering, but it's nice and it's subtle. And again, it's at 40% ABV. So in terms of finish, it's pretty quick. It's pretty quick on the palate. You sort of get those flavors in a really condensed but impactful burst on the initial sip. It's really quite delicious, actually. And it's a shame that the blended scotches take so much flack because they don't deserve it, really. Not all of them deserve it. Certainly there's some bad blends out there, and certainly depending on the sort of year that you get it, it's going to have a little bit of variations, and it might not be as good as, say, this wasn't around 10 years ago, but say a Black Label from 10 years ago or something like that. You may notice a difference that, hey, when I had this 10, 15 years ago, this tasted a lot different than it does now. So there, even though the label is sort of the same product, is, the same packaging and that sort of thing, the whiskey inside can change a little bit, so depending on where they're going and sort of who's in charge of sort of blending those together. So one little side note I will point out is whenever you see a bottle of Johnnie Walker on the shelf, you can be sort of 30 feet away from the shelf and really know right off the get-go that that is a bottle of Johnnie Walker. And this is something that was done specifically, and this square, sort of rectangular bottle is to prevent breaking. So it's a really pretty heavy-duty bottle, but the idea was that it was going to be shipped to, I think at one point it was like over 115, 120 different countries that this was being sent out to, mostly via ship. So when they put this all together, they found out that the square bottle was really helping to prevent breaking and that sort of thing. And to also make it pop out, this is something that is also very iconic to Johnnie Walker, is the label that goes up at an angle. And that's exactly a 24-degree angle, if you want to be exact. But it definitely is iconic, and we definitely have the iconic symbol on the bottom of the keep walking mantra that is a part of Johnnie Walker. So again, all in all, really, really nice whiskey. I think for the price, I can't exactly recall how much I got this for, but I want to say it was hovering in the mid-40s range. Certainly you can get the other, you can get a red and black for a little bit less money, and that is sort of your own taste, whether that is, worth that sort of money to you. There's certainly some single malts you can get out there for equal price that the quality is a little bit subpar. So, you got to put it all in perspective here. So let's go in for one more pass and see where we're at. Just a really well-balanced spirit again. I mean, the double black, we're not getting double the charred oak sense in the whiskey. That's not sort of what that is implying, but that's implying, again, the black label, which is a little bit higher in the peatier whiskey, so we have the higher sort of phenol content that is in here, and it's making an impact here, which is really lovely because it's paired very nicely with some, you can tell it's maybe some Highland single malts that are just really, really nice, really not overly powerful or anything like that. And I can't speculate as to what it is. It would sort of be foolish to try to, say what might be in it. But that's a whole other topic when we talk about transparency and in blends and that sort of thing. And certainly when it comes time to give whiskeys awards, it's hard to give, as some whiskey commentators have said recently about giving awards to blends and things like that, people who aren't distilling their own whiskey but are, blending together. But there's definitely something to say about the people, absolutely phenomenal and highly intelligent people who are blending these whiskeys together to give us consistency and quality, which is what it's all about. And, to be truthful, I think if we all spent a little bit more time on really figuring out what is quality to us, what our tastes are, and that sort of thing, rather than say it's a blend and dismiss it, I think we'll be in a much better place. And we might even see some of the single malts come down. We'll probably start seeing the blends go up, though, if that was the case. So the market will always catch us, whatever is most interesting at the time. So I will say, for a score, for the Johnnie Walker Double Black, we'll go 90 out of 100. So that's it for this week. As always, when you drink, drink responsibly, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.